you might know the concept like really, really well, and you might even get 100% if you were to take a test in school, but the SAT is a little bit of a jerk, and they're going to try to trick you.
Sure.
So I learned that, the adaptive scoring. They'll freak out. Well, I've had some students who will like purposefully try to do bad on the first module, thinking like, oh, I'll have easier questions, and then I'll ace it. Like, you're being capped. If you have one of the hard module, you're being capped. So yeah, the adaptive test.
Okay.
A lot of students overthink that.
Welcome back to the Supported Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Sebastian. Joining me this evening is an SAT coach, prep expert, Robert Brundage. Robert, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm doing great. I got some extra coffee in today, so
nice.
I'm ready to go.
I had a couple shots of espresso too. We bought a very expensive espresso machine to replace our Nespresso. I know the jury's still out on if it was worth it yet, so we'll see. But
I haven't gone down that road yet, but I've always been interested in getting maybe one of those. What are those tube? Do you know those tube ones where you can make espresso out of? It's like a tube, but it's not. It's a cheaper option.
Okay. Well, my Starbucks I need something to replace my Starbucks addiction, because like Americano $4 is really cramping my style. So now we decided to finance a coffee machine. But anyway, beautiful. So Robert, you are a digital SAT expert and educator. And just if I can just introduce you to my audience, you have a master's in teaching English to speakers of other languages from the University of San Diego, a bachelor in English language and literature from Cal Poly, and certified educator with deep expertise in digital pedagogy, which we love that. And you're a former creative content manager and curriculum designer at Revolution Prep. You're a specialist in the digital SAT with a focus on logic-based strategies, time management, and test mechanics. And you built and scaled multiple education platforms through YouTube, curriculum design, and data-informed instruction. And so, yeah, the SAT has become quite new benchmark for exams thanks to COVID, right? Like now it's just, you have to get a 1500 if you want to go anywhere now, right? Or like, what's going on with that?
I mean, that's how a lot of students feel. I get a lot of students aiming specifically for 1500 or higher. It's like, it's really quite high, you know?
Right. Well, are you familiar with why that happened? Like, do you know the whole story with COVID? Or I mean, I'm not sure how deep, just because we do some college planning. So like
I only know what I got from my students. I started working with Revolution Prep around the time of COVID, so this is all I know, but I'm curious if you'd care to
I'd love to share with you. So basically, so are you familiar with common data sets and the 25th, 50th, and 75th percentile of like SAT scores to get into college?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a low end, a middle, and a high end, right? That's of what kids that the year before got in with their SAT scores. So COVID hits, all schools go score optional for like 3 or 4 years. So kids are still applying to these schools, and they're using the past data to do it. So they use the data before COVID, and they're like, okay, let's just say Stanford, for example, and they see that the 50th percentile was, let's just say 1450 back then. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but because they're score optional, they don't have to submit a score. So if they got under a 1450, they didn't submit a score. But if they got over a 1450, they were encouraged to submit a score. So all the kids above the 50th percentile submitted scores, which then pushed the new law of averages. I'm not a math person, but it pushed the averages up to, it's like every major school, like all the top 25 now you need like in the 1500s, which is insane. So but it's a big windfall to SAT people, because now it's like, we have to get there. So,
okay, that makes sense actually. And it does kind of ring a bell now that you're bringing it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you get into SAT prep?
Well, as you mentioned in my introduction, I have a master's degree in TESOL. So I trained to work with, my thought was I want to work with immigrants. I want to teach them English so that they can succeed, in this country. And
I love that.
I got my degree. I spent a couple of years, I would say several years, applying to different junior colleges, state colleges, and no luck. So I had to make ends meet, and at some point I was, looking online at different gigs. At the time, I was working with a company teaching kids in China online, so I already had that one-on-one
Okay.
online tutoring experience. And then I saw Revolution Prep, and it was, test prep, one-on-one. The pay was going to be higher. I wasn't going to have to work at crazy hours because I wasn't going to be working with kids in China. So I said,
Right.
man, I'll give this a try. I got hired and I fell in love with it. So in a nutshell, that's what happened. Yeah.
Okay. That's really interesting because like it's TESOL, right? That's how you say it. Like that.
Yeah.
I'm just so familiar with that. As like, isn't that like where you as a teacher you could go teach abroad or like teach English as a second language in another country, right?
Yeah. And I did work at a university in Thailand for a while.
Oh, nice. What part
Ubon
of Thailand?
Ratchathani.
Okay. How was
Yeah.
that?
It was incredible, and I really missed the food, and I also really missed the people. But long story short, I was planning on staying out there and just, gallivanting through Southeast Asia for a while, maybe going somewhere else.
Yeah.
But then I realized that the person who I wanted to marry was in the United States, and I needed
Right.
to go home and get married and, be with my wife. And
Right.
so that's what happened, basically.
Okay. I gotcha. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good reason to come back.
Yeah, gotta marry my wife.
Yeah, there you go. So you like the time you spent in revolutionary prep, what did that teach you about like how actually helping students improve?
So Revolution Prep, my time there essentially helped me to relearn, at least in the math side, to relearn everything that I had completely forgotten, that I hadn't done in years and years and years.
Right.
Because I wasn't working on math, as a TESOL major or anything. So I was able to not only relearn all the stuff from high school that I'd forgotten, but I was able to, I think, learn more than I ever knew in high school. So that core knowledge of math was definitely one of the things that I came away with. I would also say that I learned more about just the test taking process and how important it is to employ big picture strategies. I would say trap answer awareness.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you might know the concept like really, really well, and you might even get 100% if you were to take a test in school, but the SAT is a little bit of a jerk and they're going to try to trick you.
Sure.
So I learned that. And I also just learned how to form relationships with families, how to set boundaries, things like that. I had a really, really strong leader, Annalise from Revolution Prep, who helped me to form relationships and set boundaries and all of that sort of more interpersonal stuff. So
okay, very, very cool. So that's like really taught you both the hard skills and the soft skills of everything you needed.
Yeah, so I learned quite a lot, and I was there for quite a long time. So
yeah, what point did you realize you wanted to build something on your own?
Well, I have to be careful. I can't say too much, but in a nutshell, there were a lot of layoffs going on.
Okay.
And I got nervous, and I said to myself, if I end up getting laid off, I want to make sure that I have something else going on. So I started sort of thinking about my own business. I already had experience in YouTube. I had a channel called Robert Teaches English, where I was doing ESL stuff. And I had successfully grown that to like 30,000 subscribers or something. So I was thinking, well, I want to, if I'm going to do something, I should probably just do YouTube again, but I'll do it with SAT prep. So a few months before I did actually end up getting laid off, I started this YouTube channel, and luckily, it's a good thing that I did, because unfortunately I did end up getting laid off a little bit later on down the line. And at that point I was, ready to start my own thing. So, yeah.
And so your own thing, you created Penguin Test Prep, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And
So it
so,
started as just a YouTube channel.
okay,
And the idea was I'm going to have my YouTube channel, hopefully, get some ad revenue from YouTube, and that should help a little bit. But
right,
if you know anything about YouTube, it's unless you're Mr. Beast or at least,
a long game,
getting,
right?
yeah, the ad revenue is not going to do much for you as a small to mid-sized creator. So my long game was I need to build a course so that I have something to sell. But also, in the meantime, hopefully I'll get some private tutoring students through YouTube as well. And that did end up happening. So I got some private tutoring students. I started with my English course because there's way less to cover concept-wise in English. So I figured I'd be able to get that out faster, which was definitely the case. I actually just finished my math course last week. So that tells you how long it took to build the math course.
Were you like determined to fix anything when you launched Penguin Test Prep from your past experience? Like what was that journey like?
Yeah. So as you know, the SAT went digital while I was at Revolution Prep. And it wasn't necessarily a huge company, but anytime you're working in a somewhat large company, change happens a bit slower than if you're an individual and you're literally in charge of everything.
Right.
And I did feel like there were a lot of missed opportunities regarding the changes to the digital SAT that I wanted to address. One of the big ones would probably just be Desmos. So even Khan Academy, I haven't checked on them recently, but even Khan Academy, right when the tests switched over, wasn't teaching students how to use Desmos, and it's a game changer. So I'm like, well, one of the first things I need to make sure that I'm doing is teaching how to use this tool, because it's incredible and it's going to save a lot of time and energy. So that was a big one. And then also the reading is probably a pretty big one as well, because as you know, you had these big old long passages, and now all of a sudden you've just got little snippets. Right. So I wanted to make sure that I was very deliberately addressing those changes when I started my own company. And I believe that I've done that.
So has it shifted much in how you prepare students with the move to digital? Like just overall, like because it is like now an adaptive test too, right?
Yeah. I think those two things that I mentioned would probably be the biggest ones. So I would say even before, there was a lot more to be said about just reading comprehension in general.
Right.
Like if you were doing a lot of reading, if you're a big reader, you were going to have a pretty big advantage with those longer passages. And that's, it's still the case that you'll have an advantage in general with the reading based questions. But now you really should be working specifically with SAT questions, because there's very specific types of reading questions that you're going to encounter. And in addition to that, you've got something that's almost similar to the ACT. Mm-hmm. You know how the science section of the ACT, I haven't done the ACT in a little while, but you know how the science section is kind of like reading comprehension, because you don't really need to know the science facts. It's more figuring out like what part of this table do I need to pay attention to, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And you've got these command of evidence questions in the English section now that are very similar, I would say, to those ACT, quote unquote science passages. Sure. I think that's another big change.
So, obviously there's a lot of, let's just say, competition out there. There's a lot of SAT coaches, but of course there's a growth in AI tools, right? And I guess some have their advantage, some have their disadvantage, some are, marketing in there. But like, how do you think AI tools in SAT prep versus just true skill development differ? Like what are you seeing out there? If kids are coming to you, haven't already done that, or are you using them in your program?
Yeah, so I have a lot of experience with ChatGPT specifically because it was my only business partner when I first started.
Okay.
Super helpful for not creating questions, but helping me create questions, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Basically, I will give a really specific prompt about a type of question that I'm trying to get, and I'll have something that I will have to edit quite a bit. So I've had a ton of experience working with ChatGPT actually creating SAT questions, which, sometimes it's good. Sometimes I end up just doing the whole thing myself, but
Right.
I would say most of the time I at least have a foundation to work with, which is nice. Now, as far as AI helping students, I think if you are scoring below 1,000, and I'll just stick with ChatGPT because that's what I know, and even a lot of the virtual tutors are going to be just a GPT, right?
Right.
I think if you're scoring below 1,000 and you're trying to learn really basic foundational concepts, it's actually really helpful because you can ask very specific questions. You can take a screenshot or copy and paste an actual SAT question, and ChatGPT is going to give you a really good, sometimes maybe overly detailed explanation, but it will
Sure.
teach you the stuff, right? So I think if you're in that lower range, could be super helpful. If you are in the mid tier, say like 1,200 to 1,400, there's going to be some error I've noticed, and I'm just going based off of the way that it reacts to SAT questions, because I've also had it try to answer and it doesn't get 100% by any means. There's going to be some error, but I would say the big issue there is if you are in that mid tier range and you're working with a GPT, at least at this point in time, it might teach you a way to solve the question, but it's probably not going to be the most efficient way. There's definitely a big blind spot in regards to Desmos. It's not going to teach you how to use Desmos if we're talking about math. Right. And then some of the explanations in English are also a bit, they're lacking. I don't know what else to say about that other than they're lacking. Like sometimes it'll just say things like, oh, you should use a comma because you're pausing here. I'm just like, that's not really a rule. And then if you're scoring high, like 1,400 plus, I don't think that's going to be much help. I've noticed consistent errors. Right. It'll just straight up get stuff wrong, especially in the English section with reading comprehension.
Interesting.
And there's no reliable question replication at that high level either. So
basically, like below, it can start mentoring you. In the middle, it's going to be a little bit more helpful. And really, if you need an elite score, you don't want to use it.
Yes, and again, maybe a month from now it'll level up. Who knows? Right. But at the time that we're recording this, I would say that's the case. Yeah. What's been your? I'm just curious. What's been your experience? Have you messed around with ChatGPT on SAT questions?
Well, not SAT questions, but because College Board obviously protects a lot of their stuff, so it's very, very hard to replicate AP style questions, especially stimulus based questions. So that's at scale, it's become hard. ChatGPT does a pretty good job of structuring questions like that, but the big thing that I see it is that it really has a hard time. Like it gives you an idea of a stimulus, but it won't actually write the stimulus because oftentimes, especially for like historical analysis, you're looking at like primary and secondary sources. So if it doesn't have that as a reference point, it doesn't. We kind of blend it with some bounce back off ideas off of Claude as well. It seems to be a better thinker and writer than ChatGPT. I like Claude better for that kind of stuff, especially at scale. But yeah, you're right. It does have hallucinations. It doesn't always think correctly. But like one of the best tools that have come out that's free, but it's teacher dependent is Class Companion. You know about Class Companion?
Is that the one that'll make slideshows for you?
No, it actually, it will like you can put your questions in it. Basically, it's like a grader, but it gives instant feedback. It's a language model. It's built off of ChatGPT. It was built by, I think, a person from Stanford or Harvard, I forget. And then she piloted with a couple of teachers. But that has been really helpful to our kids on the free response questions, getting that type of feedback. I think I've seen some SAT stuff on there, but obviously, like SAT doesn't know what it wants, like getting rid of the writing section, right? Like writing something. So, but I think what struck me about the profile is that you really do focus on the overall strategy. of the SAT, which is something that we're passionate about in the AP. Like, it's not really like you mentioned earlier, like it's not really the content, your knowledge is what you could do with the content, because that's ultimately what's assessed. So do you see mistakes that kids make when they rely too much on tools or too much on like trying to like memorize their way into this rather than just the overall strategy?
Yeah, so I'll start with the memorizing stuff. So I've worked with a lot of high achieving students.
Right.
We're talking students who, you know, plenty of them smarter than me for sure, more knowledgeable than me in the core like mathematics and everything like that. And one of the biggest issues that they'll run into, if we're talking about the math section, is just these distractor answers, which a really big one would be there's a 3-step problem and you have 4 answer choices. And one of the wrong answer choices is step 2 of that process.
Right.
So if you get to step 2 and you see this number and you get all excited, you're like, oh, I did it. And to be clear, up until that point, you've done everything perfectly. But because that's one of the answer choices, a high scoring student who's used to doing things quickly will see, oh, I got my answer, I'm going to move on. So that's a big one. Just not knowing just how tricky the SAT can be. I would say, as far as tool use goes, if we're talking about actually taking the exam, the only tool that I see causing problems is Desmos, which is interesting because it's also hugely helpful. But some students will become over-reliant on Desmos and they'll end up wasting a bunch of time. And I'll be like, hey, dude, they were just asking you about the y-intercept. Like, y equals mx plus b, remember? Like, oh, yeah, I just spent 3 minutes on that problem trying to do something in Desmos instead. So, well, I would say it'll slow students down sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, I think I've reflected on that today too, just how it's easier now than ever to learn something. It's easier now than ever to be successful and to do it. But like, just getting past that initial step of like acknowledging that you don't know anything and doing the work like necessary to get there is super important, you know, and most kids won't take that first step.
Yeah, that would be, I think, the ones that we're speaking about who are overly reliant on Desmos, because I don't know how much you've looked at other YouTube channels, but I get so annoyed because they're like, use Desmos on everything, use Desmos in the English section. Like, it's insane. And you can do so much with Desmos, but if you're going to spend that much time learning how to use Desmos to that degree, you might as well just learn the concept. Right. It's going to take you just as much time to learn the concept. And then you're going to be able to solve the answer faster that way.
Well, I have young kids and you know, 3rd grade math is like Common Core here. And I'm just like, I can't help you. I have no, this does not make any sense to me at all. Like, it's not, this is not how you do math. So I know you often say like SAT test logic and time management more than content, but we've talked about that. But, you know, I think just to drive home the point, because I know we serve similar audiences and similar clientele. Why is it not content? Why is it so much more skill based and the test taking skills than actually knowing things of like memorizing?
So the first one would be what we already went over a little bit with the distractor answers. So in math, I kind of mentioned what some of those might look like. In English, you're going to have, I would say, even more distracting wrong answer choices, because a lot of the reading questions, you will have 4 answers that reflect the passage, and they are literally true, like they're happening in the passage, but they don't address the question. Specifically, if you have like, there's a skill called main ideas and details. And if you have a detail-based question that's asking about, you know, I don't know, Henry's mood or something, you might have 3 wrong answers that are talking about some other person's mood or, you know, something that actually happened in the passage. But if it doesn't address the question, then it's the wrong answer. So that's a really big distractor in English. And then on top of that, you've got time management, because if you're a slow reader like me and you try to read everything in the English section, especially in module 2, and if you try to look at every single table and chart and graph that they give you, you're not going to make it. So you need to know what parts of the passages you can straight up skip. You need to know, based on what type of question you're dealing with, where you should be looking first. So that would be some really specific examples of the test taking skill, because again, you might have really great reading comprehension, but unless you're a speed reader, you're probably not going to be able to read everything in the English section in module 2. And then what was I going to say?
It's I was going to say, it's funny that you mention these skills. It's not content. It's almost like the AP exams and the SAT are formed by the same company.
Yeah.
I guess it didn't used to be like that, right? It's gone more this skill based than it traditionally has been. I mean, at least for the APs, that's what we've seen.
It has, and the trickery I don't feel good about. Like I've always been of the mindset that I'm in the corner with my student and we're fighting the SAT together, and the SAT is kind of a cheater, kind of plays dirty. That's always been my mindset. So I don't like the trickery. I do like teaching students about the trickery because I get to empower them. I get to demystify certain things. But I will say some of the English and math skills that go beyond the foundational knowledge definitely do tap into critical thinking. And that's where I do actually like what the SAT is doing, because you're going to encounter math problems, especially really complex word problems, where you are using multiple skills. You've got like multiple shapes. You might even have to throw some algebra in there. And that's one of the things that makes it really challenging. And that's one of the reasons why you'll have students who will go over every single practice question in the question bank, and then they'll come home from their first official exam and they'll be like, there's a bunch of stuff that I never learned. It's not the case. They did learn it. They just haven't seen it presented in that way. So the repetition and getting used to using critical thinking to solve problems that involve concepts that you know but haven't seen presented in that way, I think that's another really big one. That's why it's important to focus on test-taking strategy. And it's also something that I think that will actually help and actually does reflect, somebody who might be more prepared for college. One of the few things.
No, I think that's completely valid, because that's embedded on the AP things. Where I think parents get frustrated is like, I'm sorry, like I'm the first one to tell you that your kid's not a good critical thinker at this point. They have not been taught those skills. So now we're caught catching that and having to make up that time. But it seems like we're moving more and more away from critical thinking skills rather than towards it in the system of education. Because I'm like, there's some very little logic and reasoning, which is probably why the SAT is like, hey, let's see what we got here. So it is interesting because I think learning and education are on two separate paths, which sounds counterintuitive, especially me working in a school but it is, because we're not empowering those kids enough to really think for themselves and allow them spaces to fail, because, and I'm sure you get it too, there's so much pressure to do well on your grades, well on the SAT. And it's like, yeah, but if they don't know it, that's the first step in actually learning, right? Like you have to acknowledge that you don't know something so you can grow. And it's so much that we're just so much pressure on these top scores, top schools, and we're just like ignoring the most important thing.
Well, what's crazy is you've got all this pressure on students to hit these, high scores, to know critical thinking. But then from what I understand, I've got a lot of friends who work as public school teachers. You have a lot of pressure on schools to show that your students are performing well.
Grade inflation.
Exactly. So they're not teaching critical thinking, and they're almost establishing this mindset of like, oh, we're just gonna kind of fake it. Like, that's not good.
It happens. It absolutely terrible. Happens. Like it's because like for us, for the APs, right? It's all standardized, all skill based. You can literally you could standardize the curriculum and measure skill progress. It is not taught like that. So I have like 8 avatars that come to us, but really there's like a couple camps, right? You have the kids who are, this is their first B ever, and they're an AP class. It's a college level class. It should be challenging, but they're like, the GPA is all that matters. The GPA is all that matters. You have to bring the GPA up. They should not be getting it. But it's like, you're in 9th grade. You're taking a college level biology class, college level government class. It should be hard. But the problem is, as you acknowledge, we don't know what the grade is made up of. If the grade is actually made up of tests and quizzes aligned to the AP exam, then that's actually a good sign that they can improve. But if the grade is just arbitrarily made up of anything, we have no idea. And then you get the counter opposite where kids have A's, but they go into the exam underprepared because I got an A. I'm gonna get a 5 on the exam. Yeah. And it's like, well, your grade was made up of projects and participation points, not alignment to the AP exam. And they're like, how did I get a 2? I had an A. And so like it's an interesting dichotomy, but but you're right in that it is just teachers feeling the pressure from parent, like you, because you don't want to be the one that failed. Like I'll tell you this real quick, just not to be on me, but like I'm gonna shout her out too. So first when my 3rd year teaching, I was taught at a new school in Virginia, and so she's ever listening, she'll know who I'm talking about. I didn't know how to make adjustments, personal adjustments in the grade book. I just put the assignments in and it calculated, right? I know you could actually like change it. So I was her only B ever in high school because she didn't get all the points. And so that's like, she's friends with me still. But I mean, like, it's like the pressure. I'm like, oh man. And I'm like, hey, you earned that B. Like, I don't have to tell you, you didn't get enough points. Well, I mean, I see the opposite of like teachers like, okay, we'll give you bonus points. And it's just like, it's not a true representation of what they know. And it's calculating score like based on that learning. Assessments, grades, and growth are all 3 different things, but we put them together. So, but I guess, bringing it back to the SAT and you, Robert, if you could redesign SAT prep from scratch, what would you remove?
SAT prep, like the process of preparing? Or are you talking about the SAT?
No, I think just in terms of the whole process of preparing.
Yeah, it's hard to say because I only know, like I was really on board with everything I was doing at Revolution Prep when we were working on the paper exam, because they'd been doing that for years and years and years. And now most of what I know is what I do with my students currently. But if there's one thing that I know some students are doing that I would remove, especially if they only have a month or 2 before the exam,
right?
I think trying to memorize vocabulary, unfortunately, is going to probably be a waste of your time. Kind of sucks because you didn't actually have these vocabulary-based questions on the paper exam, and now you've got these words in context questions where it might be a little bit of luck if you encounter some words that you've never seen before. Even if you're really well read, you might just come across the wrong couple of words. So I try to encourage students to focus on literally just the strategy of finding the context. And then if you know some of the words, you should be okay. If you don't know any of the words, just flip a couple coins, I guess.
Do you think that's coming back from like remember the tradition, like you have to like know these Latin, like everyone was taking Latin because they thought they got a strategic advantage on the SAT and knowing where the root of the word comes from. Do you think that's like still ingrained almost in the programming and the wiring of people?
Yeah, I would say so. And I mean, to be clear, if you're going to spend time memorizing something, memorizing some like word roots, prefixes and suffixes, that might be a better route than trying to just memorize a list of vocabulary words.
Right.
I've got like a PDF with 50 of the most common words that have shown up on the SAT, but we can't predict what the next SAT is going to be like,
Sure.
So I try to steer students toward just really practicing the strategy. If you have a long time to study, then sure, maybe throw some vocab memorization in there. But I think that would probably be one of the things that I would change, is any sort of flashcards with vocab.
Okay. Yeah. So Do you think expensive test prep actually delivers better results?
So this is, I was looking at this question, and I mean, obviously it could be yes, but you could have somebody who's just terrible at what they do who charges a lot. So then the answer would be no. But I will say, assuming you have somebody who's properly trained, knows what they're talking about, I have noticed, especially because I had some free stuff, some free tutoring that I have offered, and I worked with some students for free when I was with Revolution Prep, because we're just trying to give back and
Right.
make things more accessible. I can't remember the name of the program, but I had a student that I was working with for free, and they just they showed up late every single time. They didn't do any of the homework. They didn't care. Why am I saying this? I have noticed that if you're paying more money, you tend to care more about what you're doing because it's a big investment. Now that said, you also sometimes have parents who are footing the bill, and the students could care less. So
well, that's the biggest.
That's what makes it interesting. Like sometimes it feels like the students can tell, like, oh, my parents dished out a lot of money for this, so I better make it worth my while. But I think in general, like the psychology of I am investing in this, I need to take this seriously, it does tend to play out from what I've noticed. So yeah.
What would be advice that would upset parents but actually help students in the long term?
This one, I haven't had any like one-on-one parents get upset about this, but I imagine there would probably be some, which is basically plan on taking 3 official exams. Because I know some students and parents just want to get it over with.
Right.
So they're like, okay, we're going to take this month to prep. We're going to take the SAT and it's going to be over. So that would probably be the biggest one, is plan on taking 3 and maybe you'll take another one as well. I think that's the only advice I could think of in regards to upsetting parents.
Okay. Fair enough. What I guess kind of bringing it to a close.
Oh, actually, sorry, I just thought of one, because I've given this advice before and I've upset parents. Okay. I'm sure you have this experience as well, working with private tutoring students, but some students will spend 15 hours on X sport, basketball, field hockey, lacrosse, whatever. And their coaches will say, like, last minute, hey, we're going to practice for 4 hours today. It wasn't on the schedule, but you're coming in. And they will just obey that to a T. And I have told multiple parents, you need to stop prioritizing this sport so much. And they've
probably goes over well.
But oh my gosh, do sports suck up so much time that really should be spent on other things with some of these students. So that'd be one.
Yeah, it's a good point. Good point. That's a really good point. Yeah, that's why it's like how much time? Well, what matters more right now? So I guess just to kind of bring it to a close, I was going to move into like our rapid fire portion, if you're ready. Just kind of like basically ask you a question. First thing that comes to your mind. No explanation needed, but feel free if you want to. So
bring it.
All right, cool. The most overrated SAT prep advice.
Colons are used for lists.
One thing students overthink.
I would say the adaptive scoring. They'll freak out. Well, I've had some students who will like purposefully try to do bad on the first module, thinking like, oh, I'll have easier questions and then I'll ace it. Like, you're being capped. If you don't go to the hard module, you're being capped. So yeah, the adaptive test. Okay. I think a lot of students overthink that. Yeah.
How about one thing they underthink?
Ooh, any question in module 2. If you have a really simple looking math question and you're at like question 17, 18 in module 2, you better look out, because there's something screw going on. And then same thing with English. If you think that you can just get away with reading to this comma, you better read to the period. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Best place to earn easy points on the digital SAT.
I would say just all of the algebra in module 1 because you can just Desmos the whole thing. Super easy points if you know how to do it.
One sentence every SAT student should hear before the test day.
So with my private tutoring students, I will say this to them because it is true, because they have indeed been working hard. But I like to just say, you've already improved your score. We've seen this,
Right.
Like you went from 1250 to 1480 in front of me. So clearly you know what you're doing. You have every right to be confident. You have a strategy, you have a plan. So just do your thing.
Love that. Yeah. Love that. So, Robert, thank you so much for your time. I know, it's literally probably one of the worst times for an SAT coach to spend an hour away from his students because the big first exam of 2026 is like 6 weeks away. So for anyone listening out there or watching, where can people find you if they're interested in getting support for the SAT?
So I would say just start by going to Penguin Test Prep's YouTube channel, because I think at this point, over 100 videos just giving you free advice, free lessons, going over practice questions, and that will give you a taste of what I do. So yeah, I would say start there. I was also going to offer, I've got a big old free cheat sheet. If you're okay with it, I could
that'd be
provide
great.
You with a link that we could put in
we could definitely
the
put
show
it in
notes or whatever.
Yeah,
so I've got a free cheat sheet. So if they want to, they could also just click the link and we'll hook them up with a free cheat sheet, and also maybe some bonus lessons from some of our courses for free.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I really truly appreciate it. So hit up Robert if you need help with the SAT. Penguin Test Prep is his company. We'll provide links at the below as well. And until next time, thank you all, and keep learning.